Shalom, Yeshua bless you. I'm here again, and I have something I want to share with you. And this is specifically, once again, to the body of Yeshua, but especially to the youth. Not only to the body of Yeshua, but also to those who don't even belong to him. Those who are young and believe that their youth is their life, their strength is their future. Now understanding that one day that will pass away and fail, and you'll be left with a different body. You'll be left with the weaknesses and the consequences of life. And there's a scripture that Yahweh was giving to me, and he was explaining it to me, and I know it will bless you. So this is especially for the youth. It's in John 21:18, and it says, "Most assuredly I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and walked where you wished. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish." Now, there's different understandings to this as I was praying, and even as the scripture says, this also referred to Peter, when Yeshua had spoken this to Peter, that he would be taken away by the authorities and crucified. But this is also for us, for the child of God. When we were younger, spiritually young, we did whatever we wanted. And even when we didn't belong to Yeshua, and when we first came to him, there was still a form of rebellion in a way, wanting to do our own thing. But when you become mature in him, you begin to realize that your ways and the way you did things were contrary to the ways of God. And you also begin to realize how much your flesh gets in the way of the will of God. And that's when you start to become mature. You're growing up. And you will be, and it says, "And you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish." Now, this also has a very good aspect to it, because Yahweh, it says, whoever serves Yahweh is also his slave. We're his children, we're also his slave. He will point us in directions. He will give us instruction. He will command us to go wherever he tells us to go, even if our flesh does not want to. This is another interpretation to this. Take Jonah, for example. Yahweh said, "Go to Nineveh and warn the people." He didn't want to go. His flesh did not want to go, so he ran. But Yahweh commanded him to go, so Yahweh sent a storm, sent a fish, and taught him many lessons. And so Yahweh will do that for us as his children, because when we are older, when we're growing up, this is one of the things that will happen. We realize our flesh does not fully want to do the will of God. We realize that what we did in our youth, many of the things we did in our youth in Yeshua, in the Messiah, was out of our flesh. And then we begin to realize that God's commands will point us in the direction that our flesh don't want to go. And if we want to run from him, he'll come after us with love. Of course, he'll come after us, so we don't go astray. The second interpretation to that is, this is for any youth, whether you belong to Yeshua or not. We just have to have this awareness. When we were younger, again, we did whatever we wanted to do. Rebellious, there was fornication, there was lies, there was deception, there was whatever sin that the youth indulges in. They did that in their youth. And one thing you should realize is that when you are young and you're first sinning in one way or another, you many times don't reap what you sow right away. By the time you get to 16, 20, and 25, there's a lot that begin to reap the fruit of their ways. And by the time they get to 40 and 50, that's what they call midlife crisis. They begin to reap the fruit of what they dived into and indulged themselves in their youth. And so this is the deception that comes to a lot of youth, that sin does not have consequences. A sin only has pleasures, but no consequences. And so he tells us the consequences actually come when you are old. In your youth, you did what you wished, but when you're old, it says, you will stretch out your hands and another will gird you and carry you away where you do not wish. And this is something that I have, speaking to people, older people, whether it be 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, however old they were. They have this one thing in common, and that is they're bound. They feel bound in sin. They do the things that they don't want to do. The demons wrap them literally by the sins they indulged in their youth. By the time they get to a certain age, they're almost completely wrapped in chains and bondages of sin. And the demons that hold them in bondage says, sin, and they go and sin. Lie, cheat, murder, kill, steal, whatever it is, and they do it. Even if their flesh, even if they don't desire to do it, they're bound. And this is another interpretation that Yahweh was giving me, that as youth you should realize everything that you dive into in your youth, unless you allow Yahushua to enter into your life and change you and deliver you quickly. Remember your Creator in your youth. If you do not do that, by the time you are old, you will stretch out your hands and you will go where the demons tell you to go, where the devil tells you to go. You will do what the devil tells you to do. You'll be so bound by sin, you will wish that you did not dive into the things you did. For example, those who are drug addicts, by the time they get to a certain age, they don't even know what freedom is anymore. The demon says, go and take drugs, and that's what they do. And so this is something that we have to be very careful about. And as we grow, we have to set a good example for those who are younger than us, to realize that unless they turn from their sin, turn from wicked ways, they will become the slaves of the things, the spirits that they serve. They will eventually become full-time slaves of the spirits they serve. In their youth, they did what they wanted to do. In their old age, they'll be dragged away to do whatever the demons tell them to do, even if they don't want to. And, that's a scary thing. How many people are in jail right now because they took up a gun or a knife and did wicked things. And, again, it was not the life that they wanted. They didn't want to end up, because when they're in jail, they get a lot of time to think about things. It's not the life that they wanted, but they didn't know how to get out of it. How many times people have said that, I don't know how to get out of that. I don't know how to get out of pornography. I don't know how to get out of masturbation. I don't know how to get out of the hatred that I have in my heart and the unforgiveness. I don't know how to get out of the bondage of anger that's in my life. There's so many people, and I had spoken to someone recently about that. A man that's like 65 years old, and this is exactly what he said. He doesn't know how, but he was lacking faith to believe that Yahushua can set him free. And this is something that we again have to realize. Our youth is are very important years, that we are not to dive into sin, but we are to seek the face of the Master Yahushua, so that we can be his slaves and not the slaves of the devil. Something I want to share with you. All right. I pray a bless to you, and shalom.